Well, hello everyone and welcome. This is Dave Bretthauer at MemoryBox. I'm sharing with you today a video using our new wide washi tape. I'm having a lot of fun with this lately. I've got some simple ideas for applying it to cards, and I've got 3 different designs that I'm going to share with you, plus a few extra ideas. These wide washi tapes are from all 3 of my companies, MemoryBox, Poppystamps, and Birch Press Design. We'll be using one from each. So let's get started. For this first project, I'm going to be creating a collage style card. And I want to start with a piece of cardstock. This is cut 4 by 5 1/4, just plain old white cardstock. And I'm going to start by adding a little bit of color on the right-hand side of the paper. Using some Distress Oxide in fired brick. I'm just going to sponge a little bit of that on, and then I'm going to be applying some of the 'Twas the Night wide washi tape. Now I thought about editing out this portion of the video because these wide washi tapes can be a little bit tricky to get going off the roll, but I decided to leave it in there so you guys could see what not to do. I'm going to be sharing a little bit later in the video an idea for working with this wide washi tape in a more efficient way. This stuff is sticky, and it's also very thin and sheer, which is what makes it so fun to work with. You can create lots of layers with it. But there is an easier way to manage it as you're trying to apply it to your project, and I'll be sharing that a little bit later. So as you can see, I've torn off a piece of the 'Twas the Night washi tape, and I've just pushed it down onto the surface, and I'm going to continue to add some color onto the project. Now I put a little bit of color going a little bit onto the wide washi tape. The wide washi tape resists the ink just a little bit, but after a bit you'll notice that it will dry, and that's what you can expect with the wide washi tape. You have to give it a little bit of time for the ink to absorb in there, and then it will. Just have to have some patience and let it do its thing. So I put some crushed olive Distress Oxide on there as well, and then I'm adding some walnut stain. Now once I have the base coat of color down, I'm going to use some Distress Oxide sprays in a box to just get things moving along a little bit quicker. This is a really quick and easy way to add some color to a background. And you can see right away how that Distress Oxide ink just makes things glow a little bit. I've sprayed another layer on there, this time with antique linen, and that softened things up even more. Now I'm going to remove it from my spray box there. Again, that wide washi tape is really tacky. And I want to go ahead and trim down the area around the card project. I'm going to be a little careful because things are still a little bit wet, so I don't want to smear things. I'm just going to be really kind of delicate as I move around the edge there. I've decided that maybe I want a little bit more color in the center, maybe just to darken it just a bit, because that's where I'm going to be putting my die cut. So I'm getting out the fired brick Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to sponge a little bit more in the middle. There might be still a little bit of wet spray, but that's okay. It'll just sort of blend in. And you can see going over that Distress Oxide spray sort of deepens things, but I'm going to leave some of it still untouched near the edge so there's a halo of color all the way around the project. I'm going to add a little bit more walnut stain on top of that just to darken it even more. Now I'm going to get some metallic watercolor. I'm splattering everything in 2019. I just think it adds really nice texture and some sparkle. And I'm going to use a transparency here, just a piece of plastic from some packaging that I had. I'm going to start flicking it onto the project. So you see I just have a little puddle here. Get a small brush and just start flicking it right onto the project. And I've gotten a little bit better at this with being able to control how much goes on there and how big the droplets are. It's a matter of practice, and as you do it more, you'll get better at it. I'm going to use my Ganzi Tambi watercolors just to add a little bit of brown, and I'm going to mix a little bit more of that metallic watercolor on there until I get enough spots and texture that I think I like it. Remember that you're going to be covering up a lot of this area with the die cut. So what may look like a lot is going to get covered up, and so you should plan accordingly. I'm going to let that dry and go ahead and work on my die cut. Now, the Antique Holly label, I just love these labels. I just can't get enough of them this year. I think that they're really useful, really versatile. You can use them a lot of different ways. And so I'm going to be using the Antique Holly label today. I want to ink up a background to cut that Antique Holly label out of. So I'm going to use several shades of green for the leaves of that Antique Holly label. I'll start with crushed olive in distressed oxide and then add some broken china. Remember, this is a layering die. I think that you should put a little blue on there and a little bit of red and a little bit of green, or whatever you feel like. I'm doing blues and greens for this one. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're adding lots of layers of color, so little smudges will just turn out to be some nice texture later on when you decide to do the die cut in just that right spot. I'm going to finish off with peeled paint. That's going to kind of move things around and blend things together a bit. And then I decided, oh, maybe I want some more of that broken china. And this is just a give and take kind of process. As you start to see how it's coming about and how it's developing, you're going to decide to add more color to certain areas. I added mowed lawn, and then everything seemed a little bright, so I decided to kind of mute things and get them a little darker with some brown ink. And then I just checked the size there. I want to make sure that there's enough green on there and enough color to fill up that whole die cut. So just make sure that that's big enough for you before you run it through the die cut machine. And one final check and it's good to go. I've gone ahead and cut out the pieces, and I'm just going to use some distress ink in ground espresso to polish up the edges. I think darkening the edges, we all like how that looks. It adds a little bit of a vintage look to something and sort of grounds it when you decide to put the project together. This little tip right here can really make your project look like you put a lot of effort into it, but it's so easy to do. So here's my background. It's all dry. I'm going to go ahead and apply the Antique Holly label to that background. I got a little bit of spray adhesive, you can see how sticky it is there, onto the Antique Holly label, and I'll just affix that down. It goes down nice and even. And then just a little bit of white glue in the open spots there for adhering the inner portions of the leaves. It's just like a little bit of puzzle piecing, this paper piecing technique. You kind of put it in there, and you can see that little bit of brown along the edge just makes such a difference. It just adds a little bit of shading and shadow and makes those leaves look so interesting. You just put a little bit of glue down, and then you're just getting your fingers to push things into place. And look how that green pops over that velvety oxide background. It's so beautiful. And that metallic paint, oh, so cool. Now I just need to fill in that middle piece on the label. I've stamped out the word wishing from the Mistletoe Swag Clear stamp set. I've embossed that in white embossing powder on some craft cardstock. And I'm just going to rub the edges with that espresso color again. Again, that just kind of makes it look like it just stands out so much more when you do that. And I'll add a sentiment down below that just to complete the card. But isn't that amazing? I just love that wide washi tape look, that distressed edge that just floats down the middle there, and it's got all sorts of color and speckles of metallic watercolor on it. Just such a fun collage-y type project. And that torn edge looks good on all sorts of designs. I've used this as just a little strip across the center of this card. You can see it's just a little piece of it holding those snowflakes down, and then I've added a snowflake on top. It's just a nice little touch of collage in the middle of a card and just gives a little bit more interest. It's just a little piece of leftover from a previous project. So let's move on. One time I thought, what if I could use my washi paper in a die cut? And you just have to look around the different dies that you have. You probably want one that has a lot of open area to it so that it's big and solid and you can see that washi design. The Bobble Snowflake frame, it comes with 3 different dies. We're just going to use the border here and cut that out of a metallic gold piece of cardstock. Now, I decided to try something really plain. This is just square, so you could really see the washi tape and how it shows up on a big, solid design. But really, as you look through your die cuts, look through your stash and see what you got that's big enough to show off a design of washi paper and make it part of the whole composition. So I've just cut everything out here, just popped it out real easy, and I'm going to be just putting washi tape over the center square of this bobble snowflake frame. So here's my tip working with this washi tape. You see that little piece of cardstock on the side? I created a handle, and if you create a handle every time you trim off your cardstock, then it doesn't rip. And this is a great way to kind of control how you apply this washi tape. It's still sticky and it'll stick to anything. It comes off easy, but it does become a bit of a problem and a hassle if it starts to stick to everything. And you saw in the beginning how hard it was to get that roll started. So I'm using my handle to kind of keep things under control. I've measured out, sort of, how big a piece of washi tape I want. And then I'm just going to slip another piece of scrap cardstock in there to create my next handle for the next time I use that washi tape. So see how I've slipped it in there right up against the roll. And I'm going to trim it down. I still want enough washi tape to work with, but see, my handle's all good to go with the next project. And there's my piece of washi tape sticking to everything that I'm going to use on my current project. This handle really is a unique and easy way to keep that washi tape under control. So here's the washi tape that I'm going to use for the project I'm working on now. I can just pull that off my handles there, and I'm going to put it right down onto that square. Just press it out nice and flat, get everything kind of lined up there, and just remove that extra handle so everything is ready to be die cut. Want to smooth any air bubbles out of there, you can just use your hands, but go ahead and send that through the die cut machine. That will certainly flatten it. And when it comes out, it's just cut crisp and clean right along the edge of the die. And I'm going to use that as the center portion for that bobble snowflake frame. The gold design here is the Shimmer Burst washi tape from Birch Press Design. It's got a nice medallion, gold, leafy sort of look to it. And look, little rays right over baby Jesus. Worked out so good. This is the drop nativity scene right in the center of the bobble snowflake. Another one that I decided to try is the pine needle oval frame. As you can see, there's a big portion in the middle that would be covered with washi tape. Just cut that pine needles out of the gold metallic paper, and then I embedded the wide washi tape background right in the center. It turned out stunning. The design shows up so beautifully and coordinates with that gold metallic paper. And the little red birds that are on top, just perched on the golden needles, so cool. And I used the excess leftover. This is that little oval around the edge that has some wide washi tape on it. And if you look closely, you can see all that little fine texture showing up on the pine needles. It's very eye-catching, so don't throw anything out. You can always use those extras for another project. Now, the last idea, this is a very basic idea, but just the idea of holding something in place on a card with a piece of the wide washi tape is a really neat look and sort of fun and handmade looking. I'm going to use the 6x6 Dashing Holiday papers from Memory Box. There's a whole bunch of different papers in here. I'm just going to go through and see what looks good with a little bit of holiday greenery I got out of my backyard. We have lots of that here in the Northwest. I wanted something red, I think, to go against that greenery. So I'm just tearing a little piece of paper out here. And I'm going to use that to cover a portion of the card, maybe half the card. I'm going to use a layer of wide washi tape from Poppystamps for this project. This is the Flurries wide washi tape. Again, I'm going to use that handle to keep everything under control. And you can see it's just another piece of sheer washi tape, this time imprinted with some bright white snowflakes. So festive. And I want to tuck that greenery a little bit under the edge of the wide washi tape, just enough to keep it in place. Now this Airy Script Joy from Memory Box has been one of our best sellers this season. Everybody seems to like that font. So I'm going to use that at the top. And I want to peel back the wide washi tape because I think it's going to look really cool if that greenery somehow tucks in through the bottom of the Y there, and then underneath the wide washi tape. It'll just, I don't know, kind of make it come together and make it look a little bit more interesting. So I'm using my needle tool to lift up that wide washi tape and tuck the greenery underneath and get that joy in just the right spot. And then I'll just smooth things back out with my finger, or I can use a bone folder later on to really get all those air bubbles out. But see, that joy is kind of looped right around the greenery, and it's a little, how'd you do that kind of thing on a card. And there you can see that metallic gold right on top of those bright white snowflakes and that crisp holiday greenery. So fun. Well, I hope you got some inspiration. Now go get some wide washi tape and start doing some layering and die cutting and create some projects of your own. Until next time.